Now, market veteran Ramesh Damani believes that the bull market is intact. However, monsoons and elections will lead to some consolidation. Themes like QSR, aviation, they continue to remain his preferences. Van Dubash started off by asking if we're at the cusp of a new bull market.
It engrosses us a lot every evening, even among my veteran friends who've been in the market 20, 30 years. And the question is, did the last bull market end and a new bull market started in February 14th? Or are we at a break in the old bull market and now we're seeing continuation? And I firmly belong to the latter camp. I think what we saw in October, December was a very rough quarter that tested us, as bull markets do, and then it climbs back a wall of worry, which I think is what has happened. So the fact that the market has tested its all-time high does not surprise me. I think the bull market that began in 2013-14, I think 6 months before this government came into power, is still intact. And I still think it has ways to go. Whether you take history, whether you look at technicals, whether you look at fundamentals, the sign of the top of bull market that we see, you know, the froth in the market, the high contango rates, the euphoria in the streets, have always been absent. So I believe there was a very tough break in the market, which happens. Markets climb a wall of worry and they throw out the weaker players, which is what probably happened in the last quarter of last year.
While you have said it's very difficult to hazard a guess with what's going to happen with the elections, a lot of experts have been betting on the fact that we're seeing a pre-poll rally, largely on the back of the fact that there's going to be a stable government in May. What is your outlook on the correlation between markets and elections?
The evidence is mixed, to be honest. I think when I was a younger analyst, I used to fret a lot about what happens in the election. But let me give you two examples. 1991, the Narasimha Rao government, which is a minority government at that time, introduced the most sweeping economic liberalization program in the 70 years of economic India's history. Got it passed through Parliament, and a lot of the legislation now are a fact of life. The Dream Budget, 1996, that Chidambaram launched, again part of a coalition government. So it has often happened that Rajiv Gandhi had 480 seats but could not do meaningful economic change. But sometimes minority governments have done that. So rather than focus and fret about, you know, who's coming, who's not coming, which we have very limited power to do, we take two assumptions: that we remain bullish on this country, we remain bullish on the prospects, and we want to buy great businesses. So we always look for great businesses rather than try and find who's going to win the Lok Sabha.
You know, we've been mapping out the journey for the Sensex and the Nifty, and there have been a lot of events, a lot of them adverse as well. The NBFC crisis, for instance. Do you think that the bad news has been discounted by a lot of these businesses, and what is your advice to investors?
You know, I think the NBFC crisis, not the global finance crisis, is obviously over, but the NBFC crisis, I think it's still playing out, and I think once the new government comes into power, they'll have to make some hard decisions. I don't think this problem can be solved that easily. But basically, we are very blessed. We're living in a country with 100 crore people who are aspiring to a middle-class life. So the huge amount of investment required in almost any sector you want, whether it's housing, education, travel, insurance. So I think the opportunities will be plentiful, and not to get distracted by all these happenings that periodically the market takes place, like it's the end of the world type of scenario. It really is. I think markets will find a way to conquer this and move higher.
Let's talk about areas of opportunity. You've spoken about the QSR theme. Is that something that you're betting on?
Yeah, I think, Aman, that looks like a secular opportunity. There's very few stocks to play, to be honest, because it seems like, as you know, we eat out maybe 8-9 times a month. Out of 100 meals, we eat 8. I think the average for Asia is 12 or 13 meals. So as you get closer to the Asian average, I think these businesses will boom because people want hygienic places, air conditioning, internet, women will be working out of the house, domestic staff will be harder to hire, so people will eat out. So I think there's a secular growth story that will take place. Of course, a lot of my South Bombay friends say that people don't want to eat fast food. But, you know, I think they're missing the point. This is a big country, and I think if they want clean, hygienic food, they'll be happy to go and eat there.
What about airlines as an industry? A lot has changed over the years in the way businesses operate, highly contingent on the way crude oil prices shape up. Do you see merit in this story?
See, anytime capacity is cut and pricing power introduces, that changes the game for the business. So what has happened in the last 10 years is the weaker players have been severely disabled or thrown out from the market. I'm talking of Kingfisher, I'm talking of Jet being on the ropes. So the existing players not only get higher throughput but better pricing powers. So if you notice, the fares from Bombay to Delhi, Bombay to Calcutta started rising. So I think the industry seems like headed to much better times. I would remain bullish on that sector.
You've always maintained that as an investor, one should look at price. If you're getting things at the right price, then look to buy. Metals, PSU banks right now, some of them available cheap. Is it the right time to enter?
Well, PSU has been a favorite of mine. A lot of my friends criticize me for it, which may be fair. But I think the mistake investors do is look at PSU as one entire basket. So you look at the oil marketing companies, MTNL, and a lot of other companies in the same bandwidth. While they compare technology stocks with steel stocks, with insurance stocks, they put all the PSUs down. I remember the young analyst buying a company called Bharat Electronics at 20 rupees, 160 crore market cap. Today the market cap is 24,000 crores. I'm not recommending it, but the stock's up 100x, right? A lot of PSU stocks have done very well. So in that way, a lot of the government is disinvesting a lot of rail PSUs. So I think there's some opportunity there because these are trading with, the order book is, the strong visibility on the order book. They're trading at single-digit P's. Dividends are short because 30% profit payouts. So I think maybe if you want to look at PSU stocks, that does represent an alternate opportunity.
An interesting theme you spoke of was the gaming space. What kind of value do you see here?
Well, the gaming space again is very nascent in India, but if you look across Asia, the MICE market, the meeting incentive travel market, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, all of them have casino gambling, so attract tourists and to encourage the local economy. India has still been the ostrich in the sand, not allowed that business to expand. But I think increasingly with digital technologies available, with increasingly affluence of India, I think the government will start loosening the purse strings. It will start with Goa, then perhaps spread to other parts of India like Sikkim and other parts. And once it becomes competitive, once Goa does that and attracts tourists, Chennai can't be too far behind. So they will also do that. So there are not too many ways to play it, but I think if you keep an eye on that space, opportunities will show up.
You had found merit in the media space. Is that something that interests you now?
It used to. The trouble with
not watching TV anymore.
Broadcasting is dying. I mean, there is only one. What is astonishing is that even as we look, suddenly people are not watching live broadcasting. There's only one thing that remains that people will watch live, and that is games, sports. And in India, of course, sports means 90% of the eyeballs go to cricket. So if you can find ways to play...
but what about OTT themes,
OTT themes is not broadcasting. Those will do fine. Content will always do fine. If you can produce a serial that people want to watch, you'll always do fine. Whether it's broadcast, whether it's OTT, or whether it's on a cassette recorder, it'll always do fine. But in live broadcasting, the only thing that remains of value is cricket. And the only thing that remains in cricket of huge value is not the 5-day test match, but the IPL. As you saw the number of IPLs, the opening day, it was astonishing. Almost 1 in 6 Indians was watching the IPL opener.
Yeah, the ad revenue growth there, it's crazy.
It's almost fabulous. Yeah. I think the fourth year projections they're beating in second year. So they're really doing well. And when the contract comes up for renewal in 3 or 4 years' time, I think it'll be a blockbuster figure. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. If we find ways to play that, I think there are some ways to play that. That would present a good opportunity for investors.
Yeah, and it's been the only show that's been watched for 11 years consecutive. You're seeing great year-on-year
And some teams are getting listed, so that will provide the opportunity for investors.
Okay. You brought up two big events. You said monsoon and you said election, but you didn't speak of earnings growth. Do you think that that is also a key ingredient in the market mix to ensure that the run continues successfully?
We've been so perturbed waiting for the earnings growth to come, which hasn't come. So it's been a pursuing. Again, every year when the year starts, you put in good projects, 15% earnings growth, 19% earnings growth. I don't know what will happen out there. There are certain sectors that will continue to do well. And like I've always said, I'm not a big top-down guy. I don't look at the big macro Sensex earnings. I look at more of my own individual companies. And as long as they're doing well, I think some of these stocks will show handsome growth. I'm going to remain invested.
You said you'd gotten advice years ago that the opportunity of the last 30 years will be dwarfed by the opportunity of the next 30 years. Where does the India story stand in that light now?
Yeah, I mean, it was by one of, I think, the wisest man I know, who's seen so many bull markets, who's built, done speculation, invested in a business, has done everything. And when asked, he said, what was his best decade in investing? He said, the next decade. I mean, simply said, the opportunities this country present to us are manifold. And I think there's a tendency to think, oh, the index has gone from 100 to 40,000, so you've had the opportunities. Where are we going to get the opportunities? But there's nothing to suggest the index can't be 200,000 tomorrow. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that if you compound 8-10%, ultimately in 20 years we'll get there. So I'm saying the opportunities because of digitization, disintermediation, a more open economy, deregulation, I think will be phenomenal for entrepreneurs of today. So if you are a young analyst sitting today, I would be very excited because there's some great businesses who are already being born or will be born over the next few years.
Any other areas of opportunity?
Well, you know, it's case by case. I mean, I'm going to look at individual themes. We like QSR, we like the move to organized retail, we like some of the select PSU stocks, we like gaming, we like all these businesses. Consumer businesses are going through some sort of headwinds. One, I think they're showing some degrowth in sales, which is very surprising for them. I think the reason is, if you remember recently, there was an incident in America where I think Kraft and Heinz fell 20-30% in a single day, and Warren Buffett, the great one, was asked about it. He said, you know, Costco built a private label business of equivalent value to Kraft in a period of 20 years. So why is Kraft spending so much money, and what is the value of the brand that they have? I think that has given a lot of analysts rethinking purposes on the value of a brand and how should you value the brand. So you're seeing some sort of slowdown at the edge. I think India is still a nascent market where people still aspire to brands, so we may not feel the full effect of it, but it's certainly something to think about.